as former tax chair, I have a lot to say about this tax bill. But I'm going to save those comments. But right now, I want to speak specifically to the motion before us to reject the conference committee report. And there's one large, overreaching issue why I believe we must reject the conference committee report in front of us today. As you know, the charitable gaming provision that was added into the tax bill, and I know how frustrating that is to have a lot of things added into the tax bill at the last minute, but I would just say that this provision is highly controversial. I do not recall it having a hearing in the Senate. I don't know if it did in the House or not. Surely it did not have a hearing in the Senate Tax Committee. And it's concerning to me what's happening at some private meeting, undisclosed determination that the charitable gaming was going to be basically scrapped. And what I want the chamber and the public to know is I want them to know a little bit about charitable gaming. It might be a phrase that they're not used to hearing, but certainly we all are aware of the amazing work that charitable gaming, they determine locally what missions to fund, and we are familiar with those. They determine what missions to fund in their communities, which really is the best way to serve people, which is determining what is needed in your community, which might be different than something down further in the state. They serve our veterans groups. They serve fraternal organizations, fire departments, church, youth, civic organizations. And where I live, much is the fire departments and youth sports are two of the biggest recipients from charitable gaming. They serve the sick, they serve the elderly, they serve people with disabilities, they educate kids, fund youth sports, provide wholesome activities to keep kids off the street. They feed the hungry. They serve our veterans, those brave men and women who were willing to sacrifice all to protect and defend our country. Our charitable gaming serves them. And these locally determined missions that they choose to fund are of great value. And so, to sum it up, charitable gaming makes our neighborhoods and our states a better place to live. They support our community programs with contributions and donations from charitable gaming. In fact, that's the very reason for their existence. Now, what has happened with charitable gaming, I think is important for people to know. Looking around the room here, I think I'm one of the few. I can count at least 3 other Republicans. I think there are a few Democrats here as well who were here when the charitable gaming was put into place to help as a backstop to fund the Viking Stadium. And so, as we in the last year have been talking about defeasing those bonds and saving the state money through paying off the remainder of those bonds, certainly many of us, including charitable gaming, our local communities, all of those folks that I mentioned to you, who depend on charitable gaming contributions to help those local organizations meet their worthy missions. Many of us thought it was high time then that we see a reduction in the tax on charitable gaming, because the tax on charitable gaming has gotten so abusive that we have lists and lists of charitable gaming charitable gaming which no longer can serve its prime mission, which is serving our communities, because their biggest mission is the tax confiscation that is going right. They pay more in taxes than they do in their charitable mission. And many of our charitable gaming folks have said, we did not sign up for this to be tax collectors for the state. So it was much overdue that we reduce the taxes on charitable gaming. And so, on the one hand, you might think, well, what is wrong then? Because this conference committee report, this last-minute addition on charitable gaming, decreases their taxes. But the problem is, it is by 1%. 1%. And in addition, for that minimal tax reduction, which really one could say shouldn't even be taxed anymore, since they're the only entity that pays taxes on donations that it gives out. But regardless, they should not be taxed. And what's happening here is a bit of a sleight of hand, members. I want the public to know this. It's a bit of sleight of hand, because those charitable gaming iPads, those original ones, those electronic games for the e-pull tabs that came along because of the Viking Stadium's need to have another source of revenue. And as you will recall, you know, the first few years, it didn't produce any revenue. In fact, I spoke with a number of entities. I believe it was $300 they paid to rent those particular iPads that did the e-pull tabs. And the e-pull tabs were not even bringing in enough money to pay for the rent of the special e-pull tabs laptop or iPads. And it was not until technology developed to the point where the e-pull tabs went faster that they started taking off. And they did take off, and they have done very well. And of course, the courts have ruled that there was no infringement upon the gaming rights, the exclusive gaming rights that our tribes, that our casinos have. And yet, I find it really troubling that today we're talking about a tax bill, and I'll talk about it later with the good things and the clunkers that will make it difficult for me to support. But I would say it's troubling today that one of the last pieces that was added was the e-pull tabs provision. Now that they're profitable, we are going to revert those by law, take away the technology advancements the courts have said are not infringing upon our tribal casinos, and suddenly we, right here in the legislature, are willing to take away, by law, those innovations that have made the e-pull tabs successful for our charitable gaming, most importantly, for the communities in which they serve. And because of the way that this was added at the last minute, I believe that it is time that we must send this omnibus tax bill back and have a full hearing on this. Thank you.